What happens to a vintage G.I. Joe toy when a guy like me with a craving for modification and a love for Star Wars gets a hold of it? Well, you're about to find out because that's coming up. This, my friends, is a Jawa, the scavenger of the Star Wars universe. This is a G.I. Joe Fort American tank from 1991, made by Hasbro. It's incomplete, it has several parts missing, but I bet this would make one heck of a Jawa scavenger speeder, and that's what we're going to do with it. The toy itself has some tracks that fold. The front end drops down. A lot of this is non-Star Wars looking. I think for the most part we'll just keep this lid closed. It does have sections here that fold out and open, and the back here opens up and drops down. For the most part, we're going to keep it intact. We're going to remove those tracks, and then we're going to modify this back area to make it more suitable for Jawa scavenging. Little sand, paint, and some matte Mod Podge. I'm adding a nice layer of Sculptamold across most of the base of the display. This will help to create a nice ground texture before adding rocks and other details later. Now, all that Sculptamold needs a few minutes to dry. We have all of the Mod Podge sand mixture as well as all the Sculptamold down. And now, before we give this a base coat, I'm going to do a little mix of some different types of rocks, some small rocks. I'm going to use a little scenic cement. You can use simple PVA. I just happen to have some of this. Just want some rocks in places that they might collect. The glue mixture down here, and then we could just sprinkle in some rocks. And then you can spritz it a little bit with some isopropyl alcohol, and that helps the glue to spread out throughout all of your ground and texture. Let's talk kit bashing here for a little bit. This vehicle here has a fair amount of texture, meaning all of the detail work is what I'm referring to as texture. But we want to kit bash model parts and add a lot more. So that means we're taking model kits and we're using all those various parts and pieces, details that you wouldn't necessarily recognize individually that we can add to our toy here. One of my favorite kits currently happens to be this British field gun kit. This particular kit has a lot of really interesting looking pieces that can add a lot of depth and texture to the projects. Now you might say to yourself, that's a pretty expensive kit. roughly around $47. But there are so many different parts and pieces within this model kit that we can use for many different projects. One aspect around this kit specifically I like are the different bags that they come with. And we'll be able to take those and position them around the outside of this soon-to-be speeder as if they're just mounting bags that they can use as they scavenge their way through the universe. Bags are a great little bit of kit to add to your projects, and I've purchased different model kits that literally just come with bags and different canisters and whatnot, and I'll put links in the description of where I got all of these. Now, I don't have a real plan. I'm just going to kind of go with the flow, but there are certain things like these tanks that are very recognizable. It reminds you of more of a military flow to things, or maybe G.I. Joe, or more of Terra, from Earth, and so we want to disguise some of that stuff so it doesn't look quite as obvious. So I'll try to disguise those first, and then the rest of it I'm just going to kind of make up as I go. Now, the Greebly palette's just a little thing I whipped up. A lot of times the Industrial Light and Magic artists would use a piece of cardboard with a diet soda can glued to it. I just took it a little step further so I could have more of a flair to mine. But I'm going to use Weld-On 3 as the glue. Certain types of toys are made with different types of plastic, so you want to do some tests. I've done a little test here where I've already glued on a piece. The Weld-On 3 actually welds the plastic together. It's a great glue or adhesive for this type of thing. This stuff evaporates really quickly, so that's what the point of the can is here. You can put it down in the lid and then just keep refilling as needed and keep your Weld-On closed so that it doesn't evaporate. So I want to add a little cable to this, so I've got a knot tied off the front of these extension bars I added. And we're going to just go up to the top of this, around the back side, back up to the tower, come down around the front, and we'll tie another little knot here. All right, detailing can go on for a long time. I'm gonna call it good with all this added greeblies and bits and parts. Put some details here on the back. We've got our cables, and I added simple cord that simulated rope. It's time to give this guy a primer coat and see if we can make it pop. And here we go. Now we've got that primer coat on here. It brings things to life and makes all those details pop. And now we just need to start laying down some paint. I'm typically really afraid of color. I tend to use a lot of grays, a lot of browns, and I stick within that camp. So for this speeder, I'm gonna go outside of my comfort zone and we're gonna do some shades of blue. Well, this thing's kind of in the ugly stage right now, but we're going to make some improvements on that. And we're going to start going in and doing some detail painting. So the initial paint job is finished here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do some washes on this. And then we've got some highlights to do and we can wrap this up. I did go ahead and spray the whole thing with a Rust-Oleum matte clear varnish. Otherwise, once you start putting the oils on there, it'll just start pulling the paint off. And then I've mixed up a couple of washes here. We got kind of a dark brown and then a black. And we're just going to dive in here. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to take a little bit of dry brushing and do some highlights on some edges of things just to kind of make them pop a little bit. Just like these here, just a little bit on each edge, just a little bit here and there. Now that the skiff is all set, we need to turn our attention back to the base of this whole thing. And I'm going to start off by using a couple of pieces of old toys. I think what we'll do is we'll try to get these positioned in here and start to build up this lower area. Toys are nostalgia for me. Takes me back to a simpler time. That point where our imaginations were at their purest, when we would spend hours creating worlds of our own and taking these little bits of plastic on many adventures. Toy modification isn't for everyone, and we know that. And sometimes the toy community can get pretty aggressive with us when we do it. But you know what? I'm still gonna do it. And in the future, we have some that are really gonna drive some folks crazy, and others of you will be inspired. But our next project is going to be a full-on prop build, and I can promise you, you don't want to miss that one. So hit the subscribe button, drop us a comment, hit the like button while you're at it, and we'll see you the next time we build something out of nothing.